Blackhawks fans, welcome into Season 6, Episode 4 of the Four Feathers Podcast. We got a full crew tonight. It's Johnny Nani alongside my guys, Tony on tap and GM Ron Luce. How we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Tony, how you doing?
Crack 'em. Cheers. Yeah. We're one night away from being at the UC, Ron. I know, Johnny, you're going to be heading out of town. I wish you were coming, but it's good to be on the eve of actually getting to go watch live hockey. I'm doing fantastic.
Couldn't have said it better myself, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to be on the microphones here talking Blackhawks hockey with you guys. But yeah, how sweet it is that tomorrow is the home opener, and we're super excited to be there. I'm good, gentlemen. I'm good. How are you doing, Johnny?
Guys, that transitions perfectly into the title of this episode. It's Happy Hockey Homecoming because, as you alluded to, the home opener is on Thursday, October 17th. We're recording this here, coming at you on Wednesday evening to get you set for that first homestand of the year as the Blackhawks return from that season opening road trip. So we're going to break down some of the stuff from that season opening road trip. We will take a look at the homestand coming up. We'll talk CHSN ongoing saga with Xfinity. A lot of opinions flying left and right on that one. So we'll dive into that and do our usual segments, ruffle some feathers, stick taps, and we'll check in on our first record predictions of the year. Ron and I, Tony was an NA for this one, not on last week's show, but Ron and I we'll take a look at how we fared in that department. Before we do any of that, make sure you're subscribed over on YouTube at OnTap Sportsnet there. And make sure you press the like, subscribe, all that good stuff so you don't miss a show when we go live for some Blackhawks talk. Give us a follow on the socials at Four Feathers Pod and at OnTap Sportsnet. And as always, visit ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports, literature, and podcasting needs. Okay, we came to you live after the home opener, gave some from the season opener, gave some takeaways from that one, but there were 3 other games on that road trip. So now we have a little bit bigger sample size to discuss regarding this Blackhawks team. Let's just go initial takeaways from what we saw against Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary to close out that road trip.
I think the quick initial things is they look like an actual hockey team. It's nice to see some overall pretty good defensive play. I think there's obviously been a few follies. I think there's plenty of those that are going to be brought up in this evening's conversation, gentlemen. But at the end of the day, for a team that's largely new on paper, especially in the forward group, they have looked like a complete hockey team. And I think maybe more so than anything out of these 3 games and now the 4-game total sample size that we have on the season, it looks like they're playing a Luke Richardson brand of hockey and actually executing on his system. And to me, that's the biggest takeaway because now you have these veterans that know how to play in there. I think that's not only a good thing because we as fans get to watch what I deem as entertaining hockey so far, even despite their record. But this is also a good example now to these young guys that maybe last year struggled adapting to the Luke Richardson system. I'm saying, hey, this is how we expect you to play the system. And if you play this properly, we are going to be a dangerous hockey club in the future.
I think you've seen pretty much a mixed bag is kind of what I've taken away from this. I know, Ron, you brought up entertaining hockey. I would say that they're in games. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win these. Some better defense than what we're used to. The penalty kill looks good. Power play's had its moments where it's looked like absolute trash. It's had other moments where it looks cohesive. Sort of depends who's on the ice there. I think that there's been an obvious development from Connor Bedard, which is something that I think needs to be talked about a lot here tonight, is he looks a lot more comfortable. But overall, it has been entertaining hockey, Ron. You're not seeing as many rookie mistakes made by this team. There's still another notch that they need to get to win hockey games, but for all intents and purposes, as Ron said, much more entertaining hockey here from the Chicago Blackhawks in the early onset of the season.
Right. You can look at it on both sides of the puck, and I agree with Ron in that defensive structure, starting with that Winnipeg game, has been much better. So I agree that we're finally starting to see what a Luke Richardson system looks like in action with competent players able to execute it, right? On the flip side of that, you need to score more goals. I go back to the Every Shift episode and the, Norm McIver comment in that, and he had just said, we need to score more goals if we're going to be a competitive team. Well, through these first 4 games, over half of your goals have come in one game. And that was an excellent game on Saturday. I'm going to be wrong. I'm not discounting their effort in that one, but then you go and spread it across to another one, a couple of games with one in there. It's, you're going to have to score with some more consistency there. And I understand there are some early season kinks to work out, maybe get your ideal line combinations and where guys are going to play, who they're going to play with. Are they meshing that well when they actually are on together, if that is the right combination? So there's a lot, and it's still early season once again. But this is one thing that I would point to in terms of you're going to look for improvement, market improvement from this team. They're going to need to score more goals. Tony, you brought an important name. Let's start with one of the guys who can generate a lot of those goals, and that's one Mr. Connor Bedard. Much more mature game, I think, through this first four.
Yeah, and one thing that they've sort of hinted on in some of these broadcasts and just in analysis is the fact that he's shooting the puck a lot more. Looks more confident. He's bounced around a little bit in this lineup so far. You've seen him taking a couple of double shifts. You've seen him with Teuvo Teravainen. You've watched him sort of move back and forth throughout the lineup. And I think that that's just some plug and play from Luke Richardson early on. However, the key takeaway, and you mentioned it, is he just looks more mature. And that's only going to increase that maturity level as we go through this season into next year. But it's a more confident on the puck. And then from the defensive side of things, he looks more engaged. And that's huge. I don't mean to make comparisons, but what was the knock on Patrick Kane so often? This guy doesn't play defense. He's just an offensive-minded player. If we can get a complete, full defensive menace, as well as a scoring threat, as well as a passing threat out of Connor Bedard, I think that is just huge for the Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard himself as a hockey player. But you don't see as much hesitancy from him when he's playing on the defensive side of the puck. So I really like seeing that early on.
I think too, there's just there was that poise that he had last season, just that natural raw talent that you saw when the puck was on his stick. It feels like it's taken kind of a peg up in this season. Like he gets the puck on his stick now and you're like, oh, there's that extra sense of almost anticipation, I think, as a fan when you watch, because he looks so confident playing with the puck. And Johnny, we're talking about defense. Don't get me wrong. I like to see that he's more engaged defensively. I think we're never, and I think we're all in agreement on this, just saying it out loud, he's never going to be Jonathan Toews defensively. And God, if he ever is, watch out. But realistically, even if he's competent defensively, at least if he's giving the effort and he's showing that engagement, Tony, that you mentioned on the defensive end, that's just going to turn, in my opinion, that's going to help him turn a lot of that defense into offense. And that's where he's the most dangerous. And you saw it. Just look at that game against Edmonton. When he walked into the zone and that defenseman has to respect a guy like Teuvo Teravainen coming down with him, and he's got all the room in the world just to rip it over the goalie's blocker and doesn't stand a chance. I mean, it's that type of confidence and kind of swagger. And may I also add, he's kind of got a quiet 5 points so far. I think by NHL standpoints, right? Like last year it was Connor Bedard this and Connor Bedard that. And now the Utah stuff has kind of taken some speed, and rightfully so. Johnny Gaudreau and everything going on in Columbus, I think, has taken a lot of the national NHL media cycle right now. But I think if he keeps this up and we're 10 games in, he's got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 points, anything in the teens really at this point. All of a sudden, I think that the directional focus of the NHL's attention is going to go back to a guy like Connor Bedard, especially with Macklin Celebrini on the sideline right now.
Yeah, good points all around on the two-way game. In terms of his defense, something he worked on over the summer, and it was highlighted by Ben Pope of the Chicago Sun-Times, and that was using his stick to create turnovers, because we all know how nasty his hands are, right? So it's just that added work over the summer, and obviously you have the base of one season under your belt to know what to expect and how to play against these guys. Well, he's not going to out-muscle very many guys. There might be a few he's able to win a battle against, but if he can go and lift sticks and steal pucks that way, that's huge. And then also in terms of not having it doesn't have to be the Connor Bedard show all the time, because guess what? Now there are some competent line mates around him. You whoever mentioned the rush with, yes, you have to respect Teuvo Teravainen, because guess what? He's up there in points as well. You go and look at the leaderboard for the Blackhawks, and obviously a couple of power play goals helping that effort on Saturday night in Edmonton. But that just gives him more time and space. And you saw it. I mean, he was damn close against Calgary in Tuesday night's game on multiple occasions. It was great to see him zipping around out there. Obviously, you'd like to have the result, to have the win, but the fact that he's generating those chances and doing it with regularity and swagger, confidence, it only bodes well as this team meshes further.
Yeah, and just quickly to add too, right? I think we saw some of that growing pain early in the season last year. Yes, he was getting points, but they were coming a lot fewer and further between. It really felt like that Tampa Bay Lightning game was that coming out party for Connor Bedard, where it was like, oh, okay, now he looks like the generational talent that everybody profiled him to be. I think the fact that he's already buzzing at that level this early in the season, Johnny, to your point, I think is going to yield more of those results sooner rather than later than we saw just a season ago, where he still put up a very respectable 61 and 68 games.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to talk a little bit offense as a whole, just some numbers that I dug up today. And this is all numbers entering play Wednesday, so things could change after the slate tonight. Obviously, the Hawks aren't on, but just a little preface there. Basically, what are their issues here from my takeaways? Not getting enough scoring chances, especially high-danger ones. They rank last in the NHL at 5-on-5 high-danger chance for percentage at 32.31%, worse in the league. And then they're third to last in terms of scoring chances for percentage and 42.35. Now, those are both numbers at 5-on-5. But if you go and unsort it and make it all strengths, the ranks aren't much better. It's not like they're jumping up 5-6 spots. It may only be 1 or 2. So that's something they need to basically get into the other team's house, break down their defensive structure, and fire off shots from that high danger area. That would be my sort of tactical adjustment as we move forward here. I know it's easier said than done, and maybe it comes with some more lineup meshing, as we're probably going to say a lot on the show, but that's just the reality of the numbers, what they tell us through 4 games of the season. So that was kind of my takeaway on that front. Tony, another area that you mentioned, though, was the penalty kill. We can talk some special teams here, and I want to start with the PK because it's solid overall, 77.8%. They did get scored on a couple of occasions, but my God, the times that they're not getting scored on, they are almost dictating the play.
They are, and this is something that I didn't really expect with this group for some reason. And we saw a good PK at stretches last year as well. And historically, the PK has been less of a problem than the power play for the Chicago Blackhawks. I like what I'm seeing here. And you've got some names within this group that are really difficult guys to play against defensively. And you know, I think as this season goes on, you're going to see this sort of hold potentially around that 75% mark. And I think that would be really, really good for the Chicago Blackhawks team. Obviously, no shorthanded goals scored yet for them, but I think that's coming. When you talk about them dictating the play, I go back to one thing, though, here, and this is something we haven't mentioned yet. The goaltending has been a little bit above what we've expected it to be so far this season. And I want to give some kudos to Arvid Soderblom on Friday night. That was a really, really impressive performance. And you can look to the PK there as well and just add in. I mean, shutout through 59 minutes. That's more than you can ask for. So that's going to show up in those PK numbers as well, with some really solid goaltending play early on this season. That was something that I was worried about just last week with this team entering the season. Obviously, still waiting for Brossoit to come back from injury, but you've weathered that storm as well. So I want to give a little kudos to the goaltending as well as the defense on this.
I love that, Tony, because I was just going to say, last year we ragged on him. I think a lot of Blackhawks fans did, but that's just to tell you, we will give credit where it's due. We'll just tell it like it is. If it's going bad, we'll call it out. But if it's going good, we will give kudos where it's due. Arvid Soderblom absolutely deserves him for Friday night. I like that note there, Tony. Ron, floor is yours.
Yeah, well said. And Tony, I'd be disappointed if we went an entire show without you highlighting the goaltending. But it was something that I actually got to say in a couple of conversations with people that also like to talk the hockey, just like we do here at Four Feathers. And all of them were like, how about Arvin Soderblom and the way he looked? It's like, yeah, he looks like he took a developmental step over the summer. They must have given him very clear cut. We want you to work on X, Y, and Z, do this. And we think that's going to benefit your game. And I think it largely has. I mean, Winnipeg is no joke of a team, despite the loss in OT and the shutout
on the Oilers the night before, 2 nights before. So
exactly. And a team that was a playoff team just a season ago is consistently among the top teams in that central, very tough central division that tends to be very top heavy right now. They're up there. They're one of those juggernauts. But I agree with you with the PK. I think just the PK and kind of that confidence and that swagger that you've mentioned, Johnny, and that we've talked about, I think largely as a team, as this team as a whole, it almost feels like the early days of the Sam Lafferty, Jason Dickinson PK before that got split up with the trade. And it was that kind of that harrowing, mentality. But again, it helps when you're healthy and you have those guys that are top PKers that can play that aggressive Luke Richardson style that he wants to see. When you have that, this PK has the opportunity to be special. And especially when you might be slightly under talented compared to a lot of teams you're going to play in the Western Conference over the course of the season, that can help you win games if you're able to pot a shorthanded goal here and there. There might be a game or two where their PK makes a huge difference, where you keep an electric power play like the Edmonton Oilers off the score sheet, and then you turn around and pot one yourselves. That is absolutely just a huge, I think, developmental step for them to get those W's. And the thing that we've seen Kyle Davidson and all these guys talk about, and I think it's good that they're on that same page, and you see it in the way they're playing, and especially on the PK. It's, hey, now this needs to turn into W's. This is no silver linings bullshit anymore. I know, Johnny, it was probably a relief for you to hear that. No silver linings here. They said we need to turn these into wins. And it's that type of PK effort, I think, over the course of an 82-season grind, that's going to help them get to that point and increase that number in the win column over the course of the year.
Yeah, I think they're referring to it as no moral victories is kind of what Nick Foligno has been the messaging out from the locker room. But same message. I mean, the means the same thing, right? Silver linings, moral victories, all of that. On the PK, I just love that now I can use the Chads side by side as the Nick Foligno, Jason Dickinson, whenever they just absolutely drive a power play crazy. That first power play that Winnipeg had on Friday night, I don't think they had more than like 20 seconds of zone time legitimately. And that is like absurd at like 5-on-5 when somebody's like really pressing, or as like, think about it if they're like a team's gassed in terms of that situation being hemmed in their own zone. But they were able to limit it on the, with their penalty kill. So that was some outstanding work. And then you got to take into account, because if you go and look at like those percentages on the PK and drop it down, the Blackhawks are technically like in the middle of the pack, but that one against Calgary was, they drew another penalty late in a 5-on-4 situation. So it was technically 6-on-4 because Calgary pulled the goalie. And I believe that's when Kuzmenko was able to redirect his goal in. So all things considered, you have to be encouraged by the penalty kill. Guys, I want to flip it around and talk about the power play. A little Jekyll and Hyde here. Some, like you said, Tony, I think you put it best. Sometimes looks like there's some real cohesion going on, and then other times looks like a mess. But so far, they're 33.3% on the season. We saw what can happen when they're so successful. Went 3 for 3 against the Oilers, table with a pair of those, including the dagger in that game. So it can really, the special teams can really, really dictate your fate in this league. How are we feeling about the power play so far?
I think overall, it's encouraging that we've seen a little bit of what it could be. I think especially after that first game of the season, I think everybody was very just underwhelmed and discouraged by what that power play unit looked like in Utah. I think in fairness to the power play unit too, though, there's so many new faces on this power play unit. It's really what Seth Jones and Connor Bedard are the only consistencies that we're seeing on that top power play unit from a season ago. There's a lot of gelling still happening even on the special teams as well. We talk line combinations. I think the special teams might be feeling it even harder. But when you see what they can do, especially against a team like Edmonton, like that's how you kill a juggernaut, right? Is you're able to beat them on special teams and control play at 5-on-5. And I think they largely did that. We love to see Tova Teravainen racking up points on the power play. Seth Jones looks like an absolute weapon. In case you guys didn't know, he's on a 102-point pace through 4 games so far. Just so you know. Not saying it's going to happen, but it could happen.
There's a willingness to shoot the puck there that I love.
100%. And I think that's something they sorely missed from a year ago. So just as those guys, I think, continue to mesh, there's already been some power play juggling as well on this road trip, right? We've seen guys kind of move between the top two units. I think Alex Vlasic getting a little bit of run on the power play is something I'm very excited to watch over the course of the season, even if it is just on the second unit, because he's been moving the puck really well to start the year. And I'm kind of intrigued about his offensive upside.
If you have a situation where you can change down to that last 25 seconds to 15 seconds, then you can put Jones and Vlasic out there together and be ready to defend when that power play ends.
100%. And that's what happened with the table one-timer was toward the end, they're able to put Vlasic and Jones out there. Vlasic walks in, the fake shot pass. It was absolutely beautiful. I'm excited to watch the growth of this power play unit, gentlemen. I think this is something I'm going to personally bookmark over, especially this home stretch, right? Because I feel like, the crowd gets into it a little bit more. Maybe the power play unit can benefit from that. Visuals and sight lines that they're used to as a team. I think that would be very encouraging to see.
They just need the diehards in the 300 level to be yell and shoot left and right. I think that's
100%.
Really what power play is missing.
But you know what the best part is, Johnny? This year, they're actually shooting, and it's encouraging. And I think that's why it's going to be fun. Yeah. I really do think that there is a chance that a guy, and this is for personal reasons, and you both will understand why I'm saying this. I think the power play can be very, very kind of special this year if things click properly, because two guys in particular, Connor Bedard, obviously, but Seth Jones. We might finally get that 51-point production from his first season in Chicago type numbers if this power play is able to get things going, if he's willing to be more offensively aggressive. We saw it in the end of the last season from early March through April. Seth Jones got aggressive on offense, and it showed on the stat sheet. Almost half of his production came in the last 20 games. I want to see more of that from this unit. I'm actually really excited to hopefully see it in person as well here at the home opener against a Sharks team that I would expect this Blackhawks team to be able to take care of in their home opener. But go get some more points, Seth Jones. Go get some more points, Turbo. Go get some more points, Connor. Because if that unit can hum, even at a league average pace for the full length of the season, they could be in a much better spot than we expected them to be later this year come, early March.
Just doubling down on Seth Jones in the power play. It wasn't a particularly pretty goal by any means. The second power play goal that the Blackhawks scored on Saturday night in Edmonton. But it's that willingness to shoot the puck. You never know what can happen. There are, obviously bodies you want to have your, low slot guy in there screening your goalie. But guess what? The defensemen are going to pinch down into that house area, and sometimes it can hit off the skate, it can hit off a leg and bounce through and go in the back of the net. And guess what? Then they don't ask how, they ask how many, and that is another 2-year total for the points at the end of the season. Tony, final thoughts on this?
I think one of the things with this, obviously, Teuvo Teravainen has been excellent on the power play so far. However, I think what we're kind of seeing here is, as Ron mentioned, this is a more veteran group versus some of the names that I expect to be on this power play probably by next season with some of these young guys who are going to come up, thinking like Frank Nazar, a couple of these other names who are working this out down in Rockford. And last year, Kevin Korchinski was quarterbacking some power plays too as well. So you do have a new group in here. I don't think it's a finished product, but I want to take a little bit of a different approach than Ron did, Johnny, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be issues with this power play because the talent level is just not the same as some of the NHL juggernauts that are out there. It's going to be effective when you've got Connor Bedard and Teuvo Teravainen out there. They're going to get their share of power play goals. They're going to frustrate defenses. It's going to be great. But you're also going to see times where this gets a little stagnant. And the league sort of develops strategies around stifling Connor Bedard, Teuvo Teravainen, and the big guns on this Blackhawks power play. You're going to need guys like Seth Jones to shoot the puck. You're going to need to get a little puck luck, as you mentioned, Johnny. But this is an area where I do think there will be stretches on this show where we're talking about how do we get this going again? And that leads me back to the point where a lot of fans get frustrated that you don't have a secondary scoring weapon that is at the top talent level for Connor Bedard. Because if you can shift a guy like Teuvo Teravainen down off of that line, on a power play, and sort of now he's on your second power play unit and he's the top guy over there because you have another offensive weapon on this lineup or on this team. I think it's life-changing for the Chicago Blackhawks. They have not taken that step yet in the rebuild. And maybe a guy like Nazar develops into one of those weapons, but it goes back to adding to this team from an offensive standpoint. And I still think that there's a ways to go before it's considered one of those top power play units in the league. So we're going to have to deal with a little bit of, reduced expectations. That doesn't mean we don't celebrate our victories, but I do want to stifle the expectations on this. I don't think it's going to be a top power play unit.
Right. We'll look at the second unit as well. And there's a lot of mess going on there. And I feel like Taylor Hall is just kind of, out for himself at that unit sometimes. At least that's how it seems. And also, what you're saying in that, Tony, all I heard was the Blackhawks should have drafted Ivan Demidov. I think I'll take that to my grave. But
and that's a name that I wanted to say, but I'm glad that you took the opportunity there because
that's what I heard. I mean, I heard the words you were saying, but that's what I interpreted it as.
Ron's probably over there like, calm down, guys. But it's true that they need another offensive weapon.
Yeah. Yep. All good points all around. So we'll see how it progresses. We'll track it as we're going along throughout this season. All right, guys, there's a big issue still with Blackhawks hockey beyond anything on the ice, and that is that a shit ton of fans cannot watch right now due to the standoff between CHSN and Comcast/Xfinity. Tony, you wrote a little post about this over on OnTapSportsNet.com. I know both of you are Xfinity subscribers. How are we feeling about this situation as we're now entering Game 5? It's not looking like anything's coming to fruition yet. It's kind of status quo right now.
Ron, if you want to give some thoughts, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll take it here.
By all means.
I think one of the big issues that you have right now, and this was reported on and was in the piece that I put out at OnTap Sportsnet, the Xfinity deal is largely contingent upon the Blackhawks accepting and Jerry Reinsdorf on the Bulls end of things and the White Sox end of things, moving CHSN into the highest Xfinity tier of programming, which I don't have the numbers on this, but I know as an Xfinity subscriber, I believe I'm on the middle tier, which included NBC Sportsnet during its time. And I think the price difference there for the consumer is around an extra $20 a month. You've got the other information coming out that they want to do like a streaming app as well, but that is reliant upon some extra carriage deals. On the YouTube side of things, it's been widely reported, and this is not just a Chicago issue. It's across the board. YouTube TV does not want to host any RSNs on their network. And you've got a large base of younger fans and people who've cut the cord that have moved to YouTube TV. That seems like it's completely out the window. If you're a sports fan, YouTube TV seems like it's not going to be the deal that gets it done for you. Complicating this is the fact that like everybody online seems to have an issue setting up an antenna and getting it to work correctly. I myself put the antenna up. I've got a better picture from the antenna than I do on Xfinity. It's crazy. I didn't expect that to happen. When it was live on the NHL Center Ice preview, I had already had my antenna up. I switched over during the second period of that game, I believe on Friday, looked at the Comcast picture, looked at the antenna picture, and it was working better for me. I guess I'm lucky. I've seen other people not have that kind of luck. Skokes is in here in the comments. He lives near O'Hare. Antenna definitely not ideal. Every plane that passes screws it up. That's super unfortunate. And guess what?
Legitimate factors that you don't take into account when you just say, oh, it's free over the air, right?
Right. Yeah. So while I applaud them for handing out this option, it's not ideal for everyone. Obviously, there's a bunch of people out there who are going to find a stream some way or the other to tune into their team, but we don't want to be in a position where we're advocating for this. because it should be accessible. And that's sort of like the reoccurring theme that I hear from most fans, and I feel this way myself too. You knew this was coming. You knew that you had like over a year of time to get these deals done. Unfortunately for the consumer, that's not how this business ever works. If we go back and we look at the Marquee launch, it was the same thing, and they waited it out, and the economics are completely different now than it was a couple of years ago when Marquee launched. Because if you look across the nation and all of the RSNs that are out there, look at what's going on in baseball right now. You've got the MLB producing and running most of the broadcasts for a large segment of teams. You didn't have that 5-10 years ago. It's just an ugly business to be in because the money doesn't work. And today there was an excellent article that came out. I believe it was Ben Pope who had a sit down with Danny Wirtz, and they talked about how this impacts the Blackhawks bottom line. And obviously Wirtz was pretty upset with it. That doesn't save any of the comments that are going to come online directed right now at the Blackhawks. And get ready, because next week you're going to have all that going after Jerry Reinsdorf and the Chicago Bulls, when Bulls fans can't watch their games just the same way that Blackhawks fans can't either. What I don't think works, and this was reported in that article, I believe by Ben Pope, that Comcast isn't going to drop hey, we want to put this on the highest tier. So even if they make that deal, it's sort of a lose-lose for you as a consumer. And people need to realize that. And that's not really going to change. So if you're the Blackhawks right now, you don't have any control in this negotiation. It's, hey, I'm going to screw the consumer because they're going to end up having to pay more. Then there's talk of, if you want the streaming access, you're going to have to pay additional, $20 a month, or some fee a month, just to be able to stream this team on top of, an increased cable package. So you're going to end up, as the fan right now, paying more for this product than you were, just like everything else right now in this world. It seems like you're paying more for something that you were not paying as much for just a couple of years ago. But this is a real lose-lose situation for the Chicago Blackhawks. There's really no way out of this that's going to please people. And I think that, like, as each day goes on and passes, you're going to have, people losing interest in the team, or people trying to go out there and set their antenna up the right way, or using illegal streams. It's just a bad situation. Should have been handled better by everyone that was involved in it. However, they're really at the mercy of these of the carriage companies, whether that's a streaming network or a cable company. And, I think as time goes on, you're going to see people probably wind up with DirecTV streams or DirecTV once again, as you're on, Johnny, just based on what this is going to cost the consumer at the end of the month. It's not really a great time to be telling people, hey, you need to pay an extra $20 a month just to watch your favorite hockey team. And that's, I know that they went out and said, hey, you can use the antenna. It's not working for everybody. So I don't know how this shakes out at the end of the season, or in 3 months, 2 days from now. I just don't see a good way that the Blackhawks come out with a PR win from this. It's already a loss in my opinion.
I think at this point, if I'm Danny Wirtz and I'm truly that upset about it, I call Jerry and I say, look, I'm calling the Ricketts and I'm saying, what did it take to get Marquee as its own just streaming platform, essentially? Because to your point, Tony, right? I agree with you that
deal is up with Xfinity right now. You might be going through this as a Cubs fan, and I hate to bring this up. They can cut Marquee off Xfinity and try and tier that up too by spring training or game one of the MLB season. Both of these teams are sort of effed, or every team in Chicago is sort of effed by Xfinity at this point in time.
Yeah, the only one that isn't is the Bears, and that's just because the NFL has national media rights. But Tony, I think that's the key here, right? Is I'm still calling the Ricketts if I'm Wirtz, and I say, what did it take for you guys to get this done? Because at least that's an all accessible option, right? To your point, Tony, let's say it does become
There's one other option for them.
fair, but like you said, right, there is the top Xfinity package, right? And maybe consumers like, I don't want to add $20 to that. You know what I mean? But just saying that, Marquee let you add their app up to 30 devices. So is maybe that other way a little more accessible because, maybe there's more sharing involved. You put it on different applications. I don't know what it's going to take, but if I'm truly that upset about it, I'm at least making phone calls and doing due diligence of like, okay, how can we get this up and available to more people sooner? It's going, like you said, it's lose-lose regardless. Consumers going to pay more for it at the end of the day anyway. But at least I think if it's more accessible and there's less just anger about it, there will be backlash as there was for Marquee. But I think at least then people are a little more accepting and saying, well, okay, at least I can get it now. I'm not happy about it, but I can still get it.
My thought here, and this is just, I don't know if there's something that prevents them from doing this, but Jerry Reinsdorf obviously involved in the stadium project. That was free ad-supported streaming TV, FAST, if you've heard of it. Most smart TVs these days have, the free channels that are associated with them. If you want to make this accessible to people, Stadium was already on FAST TV. That's available on Samsung, Vizio, Roku, everywhere out there. I know one of our competitors, CHGO, they launched a FAST TV network. It's out there. It can be done. Again, I don't know if the NHL or NBA or MLB restricts them from putting that on there. That's the only thought that I have, and I don't know the legality and how all these deals work. But if you're already providing this service over the air, the modern over-the-air television is free ad-supported streaming TV. It makes so much sense here because I think that sort of ends it's not accessible. If you're already giving it away for free over the antenna, that's my one out. I just don't think that they do that because I don't know if they've got the advertiser base to support this. And at the end of the day, this is all going to come down to how much money they're pumping into this to keep it even alive, because there's already talks that they're having trouble with that. So, man, it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, that's about all the updates. I think that was a good conversation back and forth on your guys' end with potential alternatives. It sucks that we've reached this point, but it's the reality of the situation as we sit entering Game 5 of the Blackhawks season. Bulls in preseason here. The Sox will be coming up before you know it. There'll be spring training. There'll be MLB opening day, end of March, right? Yep. It's going to have something come down to it. So stay tuned over on our socials at Four Feathers Pod and at On Tap Sports, and we'll try to bring any updates as they may come about. The only other kind of note I had on this is that while you had mentioned YouTube TV likely not in the cards, just because the YouTube TV does not usually carry RSNs now. They've gone away from that. CHSN is working on deals with Fubo and Hulu if you use those services to stream. So keep an eye on that. Once again, at Four Feathers Pod, we'll try to share out any updates as soon as they become available. Okay, let's get into some of our regular segments here, and it's Ruffle Some Feathers. I believe Ron's alone on this one tonight. Go ahead.
I feel like I always have feathers to ruffle. Maybe it's just it's my therapy every week, gentlemen, is to ruffle people's feathers. And my therapy this week is I'm a little numb to this CHSN debate, and it's kind of sad because it's like you want to care, but it's there's kind of just this like sad acceptance I'm feeling right now. I'm just like, okay, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm hoping they figure it out.
I feel like you're not alone, Ronnie. I think there's still a lot of vitriol out there. Our guy Pat Comiskey, our enforcer, is out there enforcing the X replies. But I feel like you're not alone. Some people, think about, if this was resolved within game 2-3, you might still have some, why did it take so long? But now you're getting to the point of where some apathy may set in.
Yeah.
And that's not just regarding the network. It could be regarding the team.
And maybe some of it for me is like, oh, well, at least I have the ability to go to games because, Tony, you and I, we frequent the UC quite a bit right now because of ticket packages. maybe that's helping because I'm like, well, at least I can see him for at least 20 games if I want to. If this thing just goes south, I'm going to try the whole antenna game and see if that works too. But I also think this highlights the importance, continuing to shake, a little bit about CHSN. If the Hawks are worried about what that does to their bottom line, it's even more important now that you put good product on the ice because then people will be willing to pay for it. And they're not going to pay for a bad product if this team's not putting W's on the ice. And I think that's where, I kind of sit with it now. I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, this might just be what we have to deal with for a while. It's sad because I have more thought. You guys got me sparked about the whole Demidov conversation and like that, that other guy that could be on the power play. And I think back to the reports that came out right around the time of our last show, Johnny. You and I actually talked about him a little bit. A guy like Jake Gensel being on the other side of Connor Bedard, potentially another star in the league, kind of part of the big three-headed monster now in Tampa Bay. That's almost where my focus is just I'm too stuck on the ice. And I hope it continues to be that way because of passion. But Johnny, to your point, right? Maybe people just fall out of love with the team, and that would be a shame. So I got to ruffle some feathers, but I think this was a little more directed at the Chicago Blackhawks than at anybody else. You're part owners in the network. Figure it out.
It's an interesting situation because you're going to have diehards that are still going to follow the team, even if they are not able to watch it. And they'll probably be pissed off about that, and rightfully so. But you'll have your people that are still going to follow. But then you'll have some people that are more casual, and then it would be something that they would throw on if it was on. Well, guess what? It's not available, so their interest starts dying down, starts getting eroded, right? It's a very legitimate thing that they have to keep in mind along with, if they're already talking, if Danny Wirtz is spouting out to Ben Pope about bottom line here, things are getting a little bit hairy on this front. So, Tony, you got any feathers to ruffle?
I've already sort of said this, but anybody who can't get an antenna working, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I don't.
Like I said, there's issues at play there though. Like Skoke said, near midway, airplanes messing up signal.
Hey, mine comes in nice and clear. It's perfect, and it's free. Might cancel Xfinity. We'll see. No, I'm just.
Yeah.
I in terms of ruffling feathers, I think that's the obvious. We just had this whole conversation, but I fully believe in what Ron said. Like, there's going to be an erosion to the fan base, and that could show up not only just in like TV numbers and advertising dollars that come in through, your TV deals and who wants to work with you, but then, and we're going to have to track this. If they don't get this solved, what does that do to the in-stadium attendance?
Yeah.
And I think that's the
Ben Pope will be revving up his stadium or his attendance tracker, as he does a good job with sometimes every year, but that'll be something to monitor.
Hey, winning, and we've said this before, and Johnny, you hinted, winning cures everything. If this team can rattle off a bunch of wins, you're still going to have the fan interest. But right now, without the ability to watch them for a majority of the people, if they're sitting towards the bottom of the league by November and there's no carriage deals, who's upgrading that package? When the season rolls around next year, where does the excitement come from? This could be an absolute fucking train wreck for the Chicago Blackhawks. We don't want to see that happen. I do have one other feather ruffling thing to talk about, and maybe this is just me. I know Rick Ball sounds awesome, but I am missing a little bit of homerism in my Chicago Blackhawks broadcast. Just a little bit of homerism. Because Darren Pang and Rick Ball are phenomenal at what they do, but damn do I miss some Pat Foley and some Eddie O, and even Chris Foster. For as much as people wanted to give him shit, there was some homerism in that broadcast. And so far, I just feel like I'm tuning into a national broadcast each and every time I watch the game. That's not the worst thing in the world for people. But as a fan of Pat Foley and Hawk Harrelson and a lot of homerism in my broadcast, I'm missing that a little bit right now. And the second thing I'll double down on the CHN broadcast that I'm also missing is where's the outro music when we go to commercial? It's just like silence and it's bland. Give me some hype music. Like, I want to feel like I'm watching a production, not just a YouTube live stream.
It became like a cue, like the Pavlov's talk with the bell, right? It became like now I know I can go to the bathroom. Now I know I can go grab a beer.
Yeah.
Right? I know
it's in your head. It's a game day thing. Like I want to hear the music.
Yeah. On Rick Ball,
something.
yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point for Ruffles and Feathers. That's exactly what the segment was designed for, Tony. That'll be something to keep an eye on. But I will say that it's a little bit different in Canada because you are broadcasting while you may be a team's broadcaster. There is a little bit more region to cover in terms of that, so there is a bit of a national feel that you do get from those announcers. It'll be interesting to see. We'll track that as the season goes along. Regarding Rick Ball. So, okay, let's move on to stick taps here in this one. And if we want to send it around the horn, Ron?
Stick taps to Seth Jones being a number one defenseman, a true number one defenseman on the Chicago Blackhawks. He is a number one defenseman in the NHL, gentlemen. I know you guys know that. I know a lot of Four Feathers listeners know that, but I think a lot of people in Blackhawks fandom don't appreciate Seth Jones. So I'm going to dust off the cobwebs a little bit from last season, and I'm just going to ask you, not even ask you, I'm going to tell you to stop disrespecting Seth Jones. 102-point pace.
Is this a scheduled segment on this show?
It might be. It might be. But Seth Jones, stick taps. Keep being number one, Big Pimp.
Tony, you got one?
I don't really have a lot to stick tap right now. And everything that we just talked about is the reason why. I really don't have any stick taps.
All right. I'm going to go with Connor Bedard on Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, showing up, showing out, and getting that towel after that 3-point outing. So, and that's always a big deal. Do you get the hockey night in Canada towel? And he most certainly got it.
Arvid Soderblom. There's my stick tap.
There you go. Yeah.
There it is.
That's, yep. Well deserved for his showing in Winnipeg. So, okay, we're moving on to
him being the first stick tap of the season, guys. For me,
yeah.
I think that's a big development here.
Yeah, that is. We're moving on to what's on tap next. Obviously, first homestand kicking off Thursday against San Jose. Saturday will be Buffalo, and Tuesday against Vancouver. There will be multiple of us attending at various points throughout this homestand. Looking forward to it. We'll probably check in after that. I know it still continues, and then we got Nashville after that Friday, but we'll try to check in with you mid next week. Let's take a look back at predictions. We're going to do predictions for this 3-game stretch of the homestand. Look back at last week's, and I got to give it to Ron. Ron said 1-1-1, and that is what shook out here. With the overtime loss included. I said 1-2. So Ron, I think if we're going to keep track of this throughout the year, we just got to do it straight up, and whoever is the most correct gets a point. And if multiple people had the same prediction and they're both correct, they get the point. So you have 1 point, and I have 0 points. Tony has 0 points as not being on the show last week. So Ron, congratulations. You want to take a little victory lap?
I do want to take a little victory lap. I will say I was not perfect, though, in my prediction. I did say I had them losing in Edmonton. I had them beating Calgary, which was flip-flop. But
I got to give you for predicting an overtime, though. I didn't have that. I had 1 and 2 regulation losses. So
I had a hunch. OT against Winnipeg. They went to OT with Winnipeg last year. That's my favorite Blackhawks game I attended last year. Was the Connor Bedard game winner down on the other end of the ice from the seats. That was a good one. So maybe it was just that inspired it, but 1-1-1. Hey, it's a good start. I'm hoping that as I continue to score points, and hopefully as we all do, our favorite players do. So Seth Jones, good job. You got another point too, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, we'll keep track of this throughout the year. Ron, you are up 1 point to nothing here on this show. As I mentioned, beginning of this homestand, we're going to predict the first 3 of this one. San Jose for the home opener, Buffalo Saturday night, Vancouver Tuesday. How do you guys see it shaking out? Give me a record prediction for the Hawks over this.
I'll go 2-1. 2-1. I don't exactly know where the 2 wins are going to come from, but I believe we'll witness a victory there on Thursday. And Johnny, I know that you and I might be in attendance on Tuesday, so maybe Saturday against Buffalo is your loss. I want to start the year off the right way, Johnny, and as we like to say around here, set the tone a little bit for the home season. And Ron, I don't know if you're going to be there Tuesday as well, but hey, a victory against Vancouver. We can celebrate with some victory beers, boys.
I might end up pissing away a point on this round of predictions, I'm going to say 3-0.
Ooh.
And the inspiration for 3-0 is the Sharks aren't very good. I know they got better. They did the same thing the Hawks did. Tyler Toffoli, names like that coming in. Yeah, but no Macklin. So a team that I think this Hawks team, especially with the last change, should be able to beat. I think we're going to see a different Hawks team. And that was one thing I kind of wanted to mention earlier in the show, and I'll bring it in here to my predictions, is we haven't seen this now veteran understanding of how to run the Luke Richardson system team when they have the last change and they can dictate the matchups. Do they become that grindy pain in the ass team at the UC this year? I think there's an outside chance they do. And these are three teams it can happen with.
You have a base of seeing just how the defensive structure improved from game 1 to game 2. Ron, I think you're on to something there. Could be.
It really could be. So that's something I want to keep an eye on. And I'm going to be optimistic about it. I think 3-0 is realistic. I will say Vancouver was a playoff team last year. They were a very good team last year. There's a lot of talent over there in Vancouver. So that could be a bit of a buzzsaw they run into on Tuesday, but you're going to have ample rest between all of these games, the additional day off in between Buffalo and Vancouver, and you stay at home. If there's any time for this team to win 3 in a row at home, it's this stand right here. I'm going 3-0.
You know what, Ron? I'm going to go and I'm going to have to do it. I was originally going to say 2-1, and I just based on opponents, I was going to go wins home opener and Saturday night against Buffalo. I think they can handle both of those teams. But I am going to be in attendance on Tuesday, and why the hell would I even go if I'm not going to think they're going to win? So I can't bring myself to give them a loss against Vancouver. We're going 3-0. So Ron, I got 3-0. Tony's got
now I feel bad.
No, you explained yours though. I can see it's a letdown because nobody wants to talk about this, but I can see a letdown. If you started the season on that road trip, that was kind of expansive, and you had a couple of days off. I know they did some team bonding stuff, but guess what? You got to go home, and life also awaits. There's more to life than hockey, and these guys settling back into their routines. I think even without Celebrini, it could be in danger of a sleeper loss in the home opener. Hate to say that. You want to start with a bang, but that's just the reality of it, guys. That life exists outside.
Get negative Nani out of here.
Negative Nani had to bleed through. Through just a little bit.
I'm telling you, man. It's true. It's a different. You're focused on hockey on the road. There's other things going on when you come back and are actually truly at home. So that's all I wanted to add in on that front, but I'm still going 3-0 with my prediction. We'll check back in on these next week when we join you for season 6, episode 5 of this show. This was season 6, episode 4. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed over on YouTube at OnTap Sportsnet so you don't miss a show whenever we go live. Give us a follow on the socials at Four Feathers Pod and at OnTap Sportsnet. And as always, OnTapSportsnet.com is your place for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Final thoughts, then we got to get on out of here, boys.
I am very excited for the home opener, and I cannot wait to see you there, Mr. Marchese. And I'm just excited to watch hockey in person. It's going to be good. I'm very excited, boys.
Are you boys going to partake in some hockey stick beers?
I 1,000% will.
Got to at least try it, man. After seeing that, you got to at least try it once, right?
Yeah. I know this is final thoughts, but I can't wait to consume some beverages out of a giant hockey stick.
I like that. My final thought is they brought the Italian beef back, and they said it's bigger and better. So that was always my staple, even before. I thought it was good before. I'm excited to see what bigger and better is. So, hot giardiniera, Italian beef, intermission meal, perfect. Can't wait. Okay. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Until next time, let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.
Go Hawks, baby.